Hello and welcome to another edition of Establish the Bets, Week 7 edition. My name is Adam Levitan. Each and every Friday night this year, I am joined by the one and only Matthew Davidow of Deck Prism, of Huddle, to talk all things betting, sides, and totals. For those of you who still don't know who Matt is, you guys know I don't think hardly anyone beats NFL sides and totals. I know Matt was, and now he's on the other side of the counter, taking on all comers. Matt, good evening.
Hey, how you doing this week, Adam?
I'm doing very well, very well. I want to start tonight with this Justin Herbert boost promo controversy from DraftKings. I was on massive tilt seeing all everybody's tweets. The game was fixed. DraftKings bribed Justin Herbert because they ran this promo, and Justin Herbert. I can't take it, man. Can you explain to the people? And I know we did this last week. Can you explain to the people the game was not rigged, that we had Justin Herbert for 1.96 touchdowns? That means roughly 14% of the time he's not going to throw any. And if you have never lost anything that was 14% to hit before, it's not fun. Believe me, I know it's not fun. It's not fun to lose when you're only 14% to lose, but it happens. So anyways, please tell the people that DraftKings did not fix this game.
Well, my first thought about it, actually, Adam, was I put myself in DraftKings shoes. I'm like, okay, what is their goal with that promo? And then I asked myself, how much does it help them to get losing bets on 14% of those? 14% of the time this happens. So let's say they run this out, they do 7 of them, 1 loses. How does that compare versus just paying it? In my mind, I think the ones like, oh, will he make 1 basket or 1 3-pointer is kind of a good one, because there's a little bit of a chance for these, but usually it's like so small.
Yeah.
But I wonder, is that worth it? It feels like they will make that mistake again, because I'm sure it hurt DraftKings actually more than whatever the promo was worth from Justin Herbert. I mean, think about what Justin Herbert makes in a season. Think about what a bad game is worth to his career earnings, and you do any math and you realize that never quite be worth it. It's one great thing about pro sports over the college. Like almost every potential fix or whatever that I can remember do tend to come in the college game, just because there's money there. And you think about the individual sports. I mean, the worldwide tennis problem, for instance, the soccer in places where the people aren't getting paid anything. It's obvious it's going to happen there. Honestly, it's probably a good thing about the NIL in college football. Like, the players actually making some money.
Right.
It's, I think, great for the overall sport, and certainly, great for us as bettors that simply want a fair game to wager on.
Yeah, I will say that the Donaghy stuff is what people always point to. Like, you can't say it's not rigged because Donaghy rigged it. And there's been a bunch of documentaries about that, by the way, which you guys can watch. I read the book by Sean Patrick. I think his name was Sean Patrick Griffith, which is a very good book about it. But yeah, there's a big difference between referee stuff and not throwing a touchdown. Anyways, we've spent enough time on that. I think one of my main questions for this week is, I'm sure you're aware, maybe you're not, the Falcons are 6-0 against the spread. And I get that some of those have been, kind of backdoors, close games, etc. The market, I still feel like, does not respect the Falcons enough, or maybe they're just running hot. I don't know. What do you think about the Falcons 6-0 against the spread this year, and where are they at this week against the Bengals?
So I think the Falcons are much better than their preseason expectation. And I also, at least in our numbers, the Deck Prism models, we've been raising them every week. They've gone only one direction. And each week, we basically agreed with the line. I don't think we've had an opinion basically on or against them. And honestly, the same, we actually lean Bengals here. There's been some Bengals money. I think there could be more. Make this line about 7. I think it'll go to 7. So I think both things are true. The Falcons have been way better. I mean, give Arthur Smith all the credit. I mean, their offense has been very well done, particularly because everybody I respect that grades offensive linemen, Brandon Thorne, for example, isn't really saying, oh, Atlanta's really dominating this blocking game. And meanwhile, they've been tremendously efficient with a quarterback that can't really hold on the ball. It's not like they have a lot of pieces here. They've been tremendously efficient. I have to believe it's a lot of coaching. Also played a couple of bad defenses, but I think they're actually more or less been correctly lined, and they just happen to cover every game. Remember, there's 32 teams. So what is that? Like 1 in 25? There's a reasonable shot for a team to be 6-0 anyway.
Sure. Yeah. I guess
somebody's got to be 6-0.
Sure. Well, no, somebody doesn't have to be 6-0, but yeah. But yeah.
No, but it's not outrageous. The one
No.
team is 6-0.
No, not outrageous at all. I just think that, people, the market is been somewhat slow, I think, on the Falcons, but I think this line looks, like you said, reasonably intact or in line. To me, the thing with me on the Falcons is their efficiency running the football has been, I mean, it's hard to win in today's NFL when what you do best is run and run and run, and that's what they've done. So
particularly when you don't particularly have the talent anywhere, like the running back or the offensive line. Like it must be the tactics.
I wanted to ask about Packers and Commanders because we have a quarterback change here. I actually kind of think it's an upgrade. And to say that Taylor Heineke is an upgrade, I don't know if you agree or not. I think it's at least a slight upgrade from competency, from decision-making, not from arm talent, but from decision-making and from competency and from just like leading the locker room also. So I think it makes a difference to have Heineke in there. Meanwhile, I know I've been saying it for a while on this show. Packers suck, man. Who are they? I think this opened 5.5. Who are the Packers to open as a 5.5 road favorite against anyone? What do you think about Packers Commanders here, and what do you think about Heineke?
Well, I mean, there's a lot there. First off, I agree with you. Heineke's better than
Wentz. Yeah.
Wentz. I've thought it was laughable that anyone thought Wentz was good from the beginning. Like I remember the MVP talk when he made a few big plays while missing all the easy ones. It was the Super Bowl that Nick Foles ended up playing really well, and the Eagles won. I mean, just think about it. They won the Super Bowl. Foles,
Yeah.
But I like Heineke. I mean, I think he's if I were ranking all the quarterbacks, I'd have him a few net levels higher than Wentz. I also agree on the Packers. I mean, remember my season wins under the Packers, for instance. I definitely think that it's hard to compete year after year. And Aaron Rodgers is clearly not as good as he was, last year, the year before that. At the same time, the Packers storm that Washington is just not a good football team. Yeah. They're really bad on both lines of scrimmages. Well, I mean, Heineke may be better than Wentz. We're still talking not a good quarterback. So you just take the Washington roster, match it against the Green Bay roster, and even on the road, having one team, Green Bay 2-1 is not outrageous. And actually, we make this line approximately with what the market is as well.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I wasn't surprised to see some money on the Commanders. I did see some 5s, 5.5s, and now there's 4.5s. I know that's not a very impactful move, but for what it's worth, a little bit it seems like on the Packers.
Always good to see people betting lines moving, Adam. That's what we're here for.
That's what we're here for. Exactly. This whole tanking stuff, in the NFL, it's hard to tank. I mean, it's really hard to tank in the NFL. People are now assuming that the Panthers are out to tank. Now, when you say a team's out to tank, to me, the way you do it is what the Panthers are doing. You trade away good players for future assets. That's what Sam Hinkie did. They had the worst roster imaginable for so long, did the Sixers, but they stockpiled so many draft picks. They end out with Embiid and Simmons and all these guys that a lot of them ended in faults. They didn't end up working out, but still, they did it right. In football, it's harder because, man, once you lose the locker room, I mean, forget it. And these guys are going to go out there and play hard. How do you handle tanking stuff when it comes to the NFL?
Well, I love talking tanking, honestly, Adam. I was really happy this came up tonight. I'm sure it'll come up again this season. One, I'm not a believer in the Sam Hinkie. Like, we're not playing Madden 03 here. The goal isn't to let's win some Super Bowls while we eat some Cheetos and then start over. This is everybody's real lives. There are kids that are going to these games. They just want to see their team win. They don't care for a better chance of a Super Bowl in 3 years. You got the branding of the franchise, all of the people involved. To me, sports are about winning the game. But I love the saying, let's go 1-0 this week. To me, that's what makes college football so great. That every game is big, every event is big. And even in an NFL game, you go to an NFL game late in the year, even when the teams are out of it, there's an energy in that stadium. And to me, that's what sports is about. Not how many Super Bowls can I win. So, yeah, on paper, X's and O's, obviously, I think did Hinkie, and I know you're a big Hinkie fan. I'm a big fan of him as a person. I just don't like the strategy business-wise. Like, I've heard him on podcasts, love him. And if you say, hey, hire someone to do this strategy, sure, why not? Right? I just don't love it as a strategy. Sorry.
My counter is that when I go to a game, I have zero desire to watch a team that I know can't win, that they're going to be like an 8th seed. Why do I want to go watch a team whose ceiling is the 8th seed? I'd rather them be shitty and then have a chance to have this really special season like maybe the Sixers will have one day. But I hear what you're saying also.
I think you're an outlier. I'm not sure. Sorry, my automated voice thing there. Usually better shut it off where the show starts. It means the Temple line has gone up at our sports book. Anyways, I took my 6-year-old to the Broncos game, the game where no one scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
He didn't care they didn't score a touchdown. He was rooting like hell for the Broncos. He doesn't even understand they have no chance for the playoffs.
Right.
I guarantee you he had a lot more fun on that game than if it was 37-0. And that's basically what tanking is a proponent of. And that's like my real world opposite example. Of course, I also think there's nothing better than your team in the playoffs, your team in the Super Bowl. And back to the football, I think that, trading away players is probably right in this spot. Of course, you remember tanking for 2 a year where they like won 5 straight near the end and all the hubbub from that. I generally, now, in all of sports and professional sports now more than it used to be, the motivation, the preparation is very real. Every week, what time these guys show up in the morning, how hard they're studying. Are they watching film at night? I'll bet you that, come week 13, when Aaron Rodgers is trying to get to the playoffs or get a better seed, bet he's watching more film than, I don't know, say Derek Carr. I know I should have mentioned names because maybe Derek Carr cares a shitload about every game. Yeah. But say Derek Carr when they're out of the playoffs or whatever. For sure, this is a thing in baseball. Think about the pitches they call or the what it takes to get more prepared for a team. When bookmakers are always like, oh my gosh, in August we always lose on the sharp sides. Well, because the teams really start trying less. They start preparing less before the game. They don't put in the same pitcher in the same spot. And the market, I think, doesn't catch up to it as well. And I think that's true in football as well. So even if they're not tanking, they're clearly going to be worse than if they were fighting for the playoffs.
Yeah. So how do you think that applies to the Panthers here? I saw it open 10, then the McCaffrey trade goes down. And maybe that opener was weak, but I saw it open 10 and now it's 13. Do you think that's because they're tanking harder or because McCaffrey matters that much?
We had 11 when McCaffrey went out. The first thing I did was change the line to 13. Now, 11 13 is not much. Like in our system, it's like 2 clicks of one input, and then it's 13. Like 11 to 13 to 12 doesn't really hit, right? I think McCaffrey's hugely important to me. If you watch Carolina play, every play is McCaffrey beating 4 guys. So, also, they just traded McCaffrey. Everyone knows they're taking. No one's about to go to the window with the Carolina, hey, give me my, my $200 I just earned this week on the Panthers. Nobody's about to do that. Now, that doesn't immediately make the dog side right, but I do think, especially if you're line shopping, come Sunday, look around, don't watch the game, take your 14, hope Brady went to another wedding,
Yeah. So you think this one's going to go to 14?
I would guess. I mean,
we
made the line 10. So the way I handle the tank teams, the way I've always handled them, is try to mostly stay away. Now, that's a great thing about being a bettor is instead of a bookmaker, you're a bettor, you're like, well, I don't know what to make this line. Well, you move on to the next one, right? Of course, if you're the bookmaker, you're playing defense. You got to have all the lines up and all the lines on all the lines and all the player props. So you've got to make a line, and that's why there's obviously going to be holes.
Yep.
Guessing the line should go to 14. Definitely, Deck Prison will be moving harder on every bet than we would say on there's a lot of actually uncertainty this week, I guess. Cleveland, Baltimore.
Yep. Interesting. Okay. I'm curious how you think about buys. We have Houston and Las Vegas both coming off of a bye. I think the narrative out there is that, hey, they're rested, they're healthy, they'll be focused, they're ready to play, they'll have more energy, they'll be better. I don't think the data has borne that out, though, that teams are actually better against the spread off a bye. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. How do you think about teams off of a bye?
I mean, I think it's clearly worth, I don't know. I put my finger in the air 15 years ago and said 6%. And I've been literally using it ever since. I haven't seen any argument either way. It's definitely a sport like football where you get physically hurt. You really have 3 advantages, right? Your first advantage is you're less sore. I mean, every person has to be less sore from having to play the game. A second hidden advantage is there's always injuries. They're not really included in the market because then players don't really matter, et cetera. But if you have let's say you have 4 or 5 injuries that are all worth even let's say 0.25%, right? Yes, that's never showing up in the market, but they add up, right? All of them. That's what maybe it could be 1.5%, 2%. So there's something there, and then you have the extra preparation time. I mean, they're starting the game plan of the week. The coaches, which a lot of people missed it. That a lot of the preparation time comes down to the coaches, right? So, sorry, 1 second. Good. Comes down to the coaches, and the coaches, they start, I think that's one of the reasons these guys are so unhealthy for the most part. I mean, they start as soon as the game in. They're watching. They're working all week. They just never stop working. You can't compete as a coach if you don't. So the extra week, I think, really helps them. And like, it was one spot I actually like last night. And I don't even know that it was right, but I liked Arizona because I thought that Arizona needed to just simplify things and stop thinking and start playing. And I thought the Saints were very important to prepare, especially for like a quarterback like Murray, who was going to act differently, throw differently, make different decisions. And, I thought the fact that they were all going to have 2 days was like a huge benefit to the Cardinals. So I think it works in a lot of directions there.
Yeah, Raiders are 7-point favorites over Houston. Both those teams are off of a bye, but I'll certainly be looking for spots where one team's off of a bye. And yeah,
but I also think it's very much in the market. If not too much, what you said is I haven't seen any spread-wise. Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. Right. I mean, Dallas this week, this line is 6.5 only because Detroit's on a bye.
What do you think the line would have been if Detroit wasn't coming off of a bye?
8-ish right now. I mean, 6%.
Yeah,
6%.
8-ish, exactly. Very scientific there. Okay. Last one, or one of the last ones I wanted to ask you about was the respect in the market for Seattle or lack thereof. I said last week I didn't think Arizona should be a road favorite against anyone. Seattle goes out. Geno didn't even play that well, and Geno won the game pretty easily as a home dog for Seattle. Now this week though, Seattle's only a 5-point dog in LA. Are people now buying too much into the Seattle stuff? I know you think Geno might turn back into a pumpkin at some point. What do you think about Seattle? Chargers are a 5-point favorite.
So I've mostly liked, that present line is almost always liked against Seattle. And we actually made this 4.5. So this is the first time that I thought the market was in the other direction on Seattle. And we haven't really changed our opinion on Seattle. I think it's somewhat of a Chargers thing. I mean, the Chargers aren't very good right now without their, probably 2 best players.
Yeah.
So, sidelined for a while. So I think that it also maybe there's still a good bet at +5 if, I kind of down on Seattle and we still have the line about right on.
Right. Okay. Interesting. All right. Very interesting slate this week. Bunch of injuries to watch ahead of Sunday. I do want to ask Matt also, we'll save this for next week though, about the Eagles, who have been so starkly better in the first half than the second half.
Talk for a while about that. I think there's actually something there where you would normally say, oh, it's a sample.
Okay, good. So we'll talk about that next week ahead of the Eagles Week 8 game as they come out of their bye. Oh, I got to ask you about this one real quick before we get out of here. What was the line? What do you think the line would have been before the season? Jets, Broncos in Denver.
Well, let's see. The Jets were probably close to Seattle to start the season, maybe a little bit better. Denver closed 6.5 at Seattle. So this would have been a solid 10. And if Wilson doesn't play, the Jets are going to close favorite.
Jets are going to close favorite. But even with, I think, Russell assumed in or likely to be in, we're still seeing like pick and -1 out there. I mean, imagine paying Russell Wilson $250 million and then waking up in week 7 and you're a home dog or a pick to the New York Jets.
Particularly bad. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but sorry. I don't know if you remember, but before the season, I made a comment about Russell being a mediocre quarterback, and I was a little bit lambasted on Twitter for that. Well, guess they were right. I sure was wrong. He's nowhere close to mediocre. He's playing about as worse as about as bad as anyone I've seen.
So bad. I'm still surprised that are people? I guess there has to be Jets money, right? I mean, there has to be Jets money. People have left the Broncos for dead.
Yeah, I don't really know. There's not much market here on this game. I don't really know where it'll go.
Yeah,
I'll like the Broncos if Rippon plays for sure. I don't think Rippon's that bad, and can't go down too much with what Denver's actually put on the field this year on offense. I think the market will overrate Wilson being out, and
got it.
Denver's better elsewhere. Jets defense has been good. Breece Hall looks great. I think Elijah Moore is going to be peeing on the sidelines.
Yeah, there's that whole thing like Harbaugh has talked about too. Like when Kobe was out. Obviously, Kobe's a great player. He's worth a ton to the spread. People overrate how much even a player as good as Kobe was worth to the spread. And to Davidow's point, I think people will overrate how much Russell Wilson is worth to the spread if he's out. But I do think he plays, and there's still going to be Jets money if he plays for sure. All right. That's going to do it for this Week 7 edition of Establish the Bets. Be sure you're in tune with everything going on at Deck Prism and Huddle by following Matt Davidow at Davidow Matthew on Twitter. For Matt, for producer Adam, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.